All right, here is the promised Saturday afternoon live. In case you've been living under a rock and hadn't heard yet, this was news a few hours ago. According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, Robbie Gould will not be returning to the 49ers for a seventh season. This, courtesy of Schefter, actually came straight from Robbie Gould, who talked to Adam Schefter about this. This is news that I would say is expected, but wasn't definite, right? We had talked about this. I'd made several videos about this, written articles about this. The 49ers were in a spot where they knew that it was going to be difficult to pay Robbie Gould the money that he wanted to be paid. On top of that, we know all the drama with Robbie Gould. Remember when they had to re-sign him in 2019? He talked a lot about wanting to be closer to his family back home in Chicago. Might have cost the 49ers a little bit extra to sign him, to have him on a long-term deal in San Francisco. I don't think that location was a determining factor for Robbie Gould, but I definitely think it might have been a determining factor in the larger picture of things because he wanted more money from the 49ers than they're willing to pay. And the whole location thing, if he didn't like living in California during the season, well, that meant that it probably would have taken a pot sweetener as far as a contract went to make things work out. There was a time back in 2019, I don't know how long this lasted, that Robbie Gould actually lived in the Santa Clara Marriott. He didn't even get a place in the Bay Area. Anyway, let's talk about why this happened, what the 49ers options are moving forward, and what their rationale is behind this move, because they obviously could have forced Robbie Gould to stay by placing the franchise tag on him again. If this were that important to them, they could have slapped that franchise tag on Robbie Gould. Would have been worth more than $6 million for this season. Would have been expensive, but, you know, with Robbie Gould, you've got a really good kicker, somebody who's made NFL history, 29 of 29 in the playoffs. If it were, you know, that important to the 49ers, they could have kept that really good kicker around. Obviously, that's not what's going to happen based on today's news, so we can talk about the why right now on the channel. First of all, need to emphasize this while we bring Robbie Gould history into the mix. This is unequivocally a risk for the 49ers. You recognize this picture up on the screen? That is my snow globe article, shattering through the snow globe at Green Bay. That's Robbie Gould on the left, Charlie Werner on the right. A lot of celebrating for the 49ers in absolutely miserably cold conditions in Green Bay, snowy conditions. Robbie Gould is the one who hit that field goal. I believe it was, I want to say 46 yards in Green Bay, maybe 45 yards in Green Bay. He nailed that kick in the divisional round of the playoffs. That was one of the 29 that he hasn't missed in the postseason, an NFL record. This is a money kicker. This is a guy who you can count on in the very biggest moments, which is why you can go back to 2019 when Gould's first contract with the 49ers was up, why they franchise tagged him, why they said, no, you're not leaving. We're keeping you here because we need somebody to deliver in these huge moments. But back in 2019, two things were different. The 49ers, A, had more cap space in 2019. Now they're about $7 or $8 million here before any restructures are executed in 2021. And B, we're in 2023 now. Why did I say 2021? This was the 2021 season. That's up on the screen, but obviously in 2022. Anyway, the second thing that changed since then is that Robbie Gould is now older. Robbie Gould is now 40 years old. Consider that at 40, he also hasn't had perfect health throughout the seasons. There were games that the 49ers had to sign a backup kicker. Go back to Chase McLaughlin in 2019. Remember, Chase McLaughlin kicks it into the tunnel at Levi Stadium, filling in for Robbie Gould, who was out for a little bit period of time. Then they had to go to Tristan Vizcaino in 2020 when Robbie Gould missed a couple games there at the end of the season. So, you know, you just look at the natural course of history with all football players. But when you look at kickers, that 40-year mark, past 40 is when guys really do start to fall off if they've lasted that long. So the 49ers are going to see significant cap savings here. And I could illustrate these cap savings to you this way. Go to over the cap right here. Look, the 49ers first pick at the end of the third round. That's, you know, not going to be an expensive pick. So say that they replace Robbie Gould with either Jake Moody from Michigan, really good kicker, played for Harbaugh, or Jack Podlesny from Georgia, and say that they use their most valuable draft pick on this kicker, which they might not do. They might be able to use a 4th-round pick or something of that sort on the kicker. But say that they use a low 3rd-rounder on him. The total value of this contract, I can make this bigger so you could see it. Total value of this contract is going to be $5.4 million over 4 years. The cap hit for the first year is going to be less than $1 million. That's the key number. I'm highlighting it down. Well, here, scroll down and highlight it down here. Can you see this? Here, 49ers at number 99. You might not be able to see it. I can actually take this title off. Now you'll be able to see it. So 49ers at number 99. You can see I highlighted it for you down at the bottom. $980,991 would be the cap hit this season of that pick. That just gives you an idea of how economically efficient it is to use draft picks in cap constrained situations instead of re-signing expensive veterans. So in the case of Robbie Gould, but we got to get his highlight back up on the screen here, just to be fair. In the case of Robbie Gould, the 49ers could save about $5 million on the 2023 cap, because you assume he played for $4.8 million annually on average over his last 4 years with the 49ers. You assume he wants to cash out one more time. He actually hasn't really started declining as far as the kick game goes yet. Recently turned 40 years old in December. So I'm guessing that he's going to want at least $4.5 million per year, but probably $5 million, especially if it's going to be a shorter term deal, 2 years. He might want $5 million per year. The franchise tag was over $6 million per year. So you look at the 49ers and their cap situation and you say, oh, they got $7 or $8 million in space. Can you dedicate a full $6 million of that with other needs still on the roster to a kicker? And no, they said, no, we can't do that. Can't do the franchise tag. Then you say, okay, can we execute a contract with Robbie Gould that pushes some of the cap hits back into the future? Well, the only way that you can do that is that there are significant years on the deal, right? So what they did in 19 to make this work is they made a 4-year deal. If you do a 4-year deal with Robbie Gould right now, you're going to be paying him till he's 43 or 44 years old. And the 49ers decided that that was not worth the risk, given the age here, given the fact that there have been some health issues here. And they said, hey, yeah, this guy has been awesome in the playoffs, and this guy might continue to be awesome in the playoffs next year, but we have to balance the risk reward of this situation. And one thing that the 49ers are well equipped with this year are mid to late round picks. And this draft is good for kickers, right? With Jake Moody out of Michigan, just mentioned him, Podlesny out of Georgia. There are other kickers that the 49ers have met with already. Since this draft is good with kickers, I think that's going to be the 49ers' preferred modus operandi. Moving forward, you're going to see a kicker take up less than $1 million of cap room if they decide to go the rookie route, as opposed to something like $5 million or so for Robbie Gould. And that's going to be really important in the larger scheme of things. I mean, I could put up the 49ers salary cap sheet here just to help illustrate where the 49ers are as a football team when it comes to spending this season. So this is the great salary cap sheet up on Google Sheets. I tweet it out from time to time. Maybe I could put it up on the chat section as well. But here we have it. 6.45 million is actually the most up-to-date number. And we can go down here. Kicker is empty right now, but say that we added Robbie Gould into kicker, which is obviously something that I don't expect the 49ers to do given today's news, but say that his cap hit was $5 million. Okay, so we just put Robbie Gould in there for $5 million. Boom, they're down to $1.45 million. Now, there are going to be mechanisms to increase the cap space a little bit with some restructures. Those come with risks of their own, but just in a rudimentary fashion, Robbie Gould's going to be really, really expensive. You put Jake Moody here instead and put his cap hit at what, 0.987, 987,000? 49ers still have over $5 million of spending room. So it's a financial decision. It's a decision that is based on projections moving forward. This right here that I put at the bottom of the screen is really important. Gould is now 40. And, at some point, this is going to go downhill. And I think that the 49ers, an auxiliary factor here. I don't think this is the main factor because I think the field goal kicking is the main thing. But kickoffs. Robbie Gould ranked like somewhere between number 23 and number 26 in hang time, kickoff distance. He ranked obviously lower than a lot of kickers. He's older. The leg is not quite as strong. Now, in fairness to Gould, a lot of that I thought was by design. If you realize he's not going to boom it through the very back of the end zone every time, you're going to want him to kick it into certain corners directionally so that the coverage unit has a good boost. And the 49ers didn't score poorly on kick coverage this year. They're middle of the pack in that regard. So, but the larger picture is that the 49ers had a plan back when they drafted Mitch Wishnowsky in 2019 and re-signed Robbie Gould. They thought that Mitch, their punter, was going to be handling a lot of these kickoffs and not Robbie Gould. But it didn't work out that way because Mitch Wishnowsky was developing a lot of leg fatigue when he was having to handle both kickoffs and punts. So they moved Robbie Gould into that role, and obviously he doesn't have that booming Sebastian Janikowski leg. And maybe they can get a little bit more out of their kickoffs if they do bring in a fresh, young leg like Jake Moody, Jack Podlesny, whoever. We can go down the list of kickers that they're going to like. What's going to happen next is the 49ers are going to conduct visits at Levi's Stadium, their facility, and they're going to work out kickers. And that's going to be Brian Schneider, who's their special teams coordinator. You're going to see I think a lot of that. You're going to see, we already saw an interview this week at the Combine. Christopher Dunn out of North Carolina State, our Matt Barrows reported that they met with him, former interview at the Combine. So this is all stuff that the 49ers are going to do to collect research, collect intelligence to see who might be the best option at kicker. Now, can they bring in a veteran? Of course. I mean, you have names like the old Packers kicker. I think Mason Crosby is going to be a free agent. Eddie Pinheiro is going to be on the market. You're going to have all those names are probably middle tier veteran names, but I think that defeats the purpose, at least partially, for a team that is trying to be efficient with the cap, because these veterans, they might cost $3 million, $4 million. So it might save you $1 million or $2 million over what Robbie Gould would have cost. But I think the real opportunity here is to go cost-controlled rookie deal. When the 49ers didn't re-sign their punter, Bradley Pinion, after 2018, they went cost-controlled rookie deal with Mitch Wishnowsky. They then since re-signed him because they really liked what Mitch Wishnowsky brought to the table. They re-signed Gould once. I don't know if they, were planning to do that twice, though, because the cost was obviously too high. So cost-controlled rookie deal seems like it might be the way to go. Now, we absolutely cannot downplay the risk involved here. Let's go back to this. This has to be up on the screen. Glorious moment in 49ers history, winning a game at Lambeau Field. Robbie Gould was the one that they entrusted with an impossibly hard kick. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how cold it actually felt there. I was walking through the parking lot before the game. I was the last one at Lambeau Field that night. I didn't leave till 3 a.m. I thought I was going to freeze to death walking out to my car. Robbie Gould had to come in cold, and the snow was falling. It did look like a snow globe through the glass of the press box there at Lambeau Field. And it is hard. The air is heavy everything's heavy when it's that cold. He had to pierce through that ice on poor footing to drill that kick with all that pressure, and he did that. There is something to absolutely be said about that. And Gould was a really good kicker for the Chicago Bears for a long time before the 49ers, then a year with the Giants. The Bears decided not to keep him around several years ago. That's coming up on almost a decade now. It's crazy. And the Bears paid a big price because 2 years after that, a successor to Gould, Cody Parkey, had the double doink. Remember the double doink kick off of the upright and then off the crossbar? And the Chicago Bears lost in the playoffs. A good Bears team in 2018 lost. Well, I mean, that was some of Robbie Gould's laughing revenge. He actually had a revenge game before that against the Bears with the 49ers in 2017. That was Jimmy Garoppolo's first start with the 49ers. But anyway, the Bears paid the price for trying to let go of a veteran kicker who they thought might be on the way downhill. And Robbie Gould had 6 really good seasons with the 49ers while the Bears lost that playoff game in 2018. So it's one of those things where the 49ers cannot let this go the way that the Bears let it go after Robbie Gould left them. You don't want that history repeating yourself if you're the 49ers. So moving forward, they absolutely have to make sure they pick the right guy. We talk about Jake Moody. We talk about Jack Podlesny, but maybe there's an under-the-radar prospect that Brian Schneider really likes while the 49ers are hosting kickers on visits. And this is going to be a decision that I don't want to say is franchise altering, but it could have massive ramifications because Robbie Gould taught us how important that kicker position is. He was a luxury for the 49ers to have to make big kicks like this. Yes, he did miss his share of kicks, but that percentage was still up in the high 80s relative to almost every other NFL kicker. It was really good. And the 49ers are now taking a risk, saying, hey, there's a risk in keeping Robbie Gould too. There are risks on both sides. They're taking the risk that they think is smaller. So yes, there are risks on both sides, but there are cap savings and there would be risks on keeping Gould and not getting those cap savings. It's called opportunity cost, right? They're going to be able to address other portions of the roster. And we also have to consider that at 40, Gould might not be a stable commodity here. In fact, data, history, father time, which is undefeated, tells us that probably the only way to go is down. And that is probably going to show up most in kickoff strength where the 49ers could use a little more juice. Anyway, big risk for the 49ers. I do hope that explains why they did what they did. And why don't we take a look at some questions while we're here today? Mark asks, would you be willing to do at least one stream with Grant Cohn? That'd be funny. I don't know. I don't really have guests on much. So if I'm going to have a guest, it will be a player. Let's see. Which rookie kicker am I most interested in? Moody kicked in tougher weather, important for Levi's, but the kid from Georgia has kicked in bigger moments. That's going to be definitely part of the equation. I think that you have to judge how this guy, whoever you bring in, is going to be able to react to the NFL level, adapt. And I mean, it's a much higher level of football, right? So it's going to be, there's the pressure cooker is, you see guys in college are great, and then they show up in the NFL and they start hitting the upright in big moments. So there is something immeasurable about the track record that Robbie Gould brought to the 49ers and then demonstrated over his 6 years. And when I say it's immeasurable, Brian Schneider and that 49ers staff better find out a way to measure it, at least partially, at least enough to get some of these new prospects a fair look so that they know whoever they're bringing in is not going to screw up at a huge moment. How high of a pick do I think they're going to need to use to get Moody? That, I don't know. I think, some of the projections have said maybe third round. I know the 49ers don't pick until late in the third. I think that, fourth to sixth round was what Walter Football thinks is going to happen. That is one of those projection sites. 49ers would obviously have plenty of picks there. They can package and move up, but maybe Moody's not their guy. Maybe they have another guy that is a little bit lower on that pecking order that they're going to pick, and that would make them happy. We will see. Yeah, the 49ers do definitely need to like more than one heading into the draft. This is a great point by Mike, and I think this really illustrates the 49ers process. The process in this situation, Robbie Gould said it himself. At the end of the regular season, when they were cleaning out their lockers, he said, I'm going to get word from the 49ers about whether or not they want to re-sign me around the time of the NFL Combine. That should have set off some alarm bells. NFL Combine is where you look at rookies. So the 49ers essentially told Robbie, we want to scout some of the rookies. And if we're comfortable with what, we think that class as a whole, more than one kicker, is bringing to the table, we're going to move on. We're not going to offer you a contract, or we're not going to offer you a contract that comes close enough to what you're wanting. I think that's how the negotiation process was projected to work. And that's exactly what has ended up happening. Lo and behold, here at the end of the NFL Combine, we received the report that Robbie Gould will not be returning to the 49ers. I would think that the fourth round would be the earliest, but it's, crazier stuff has happened. The Raiders picked Sebastian Janikowski in the first round. The Niners just don't have picks, though, that high. Their third round picks are essentially fourth round picks. They're compensatory picks, number 99, number 100, wherever they're going to end up being. They're extremely low in the third round. And then, the argument is, who is the best kicker in the draft? Is it Moody? Is it Podlesny? Is it going to be somebody else? I mean, we obviously talk about the interview that the 49ers have already conducted with NC State's Chris Dunn. On most rankings, he's ranked behind Moody and Podlesny, but you never know who's going to translate their skill set the best to the NFL level. Can't believe that Gould wouldn't renegotiate his contract. Niners have been good to him. Sad to see him go. Well, it's not a renegotiation. It would require an entirely new contract for Robbie Gould. Remember, he signed a 2-year deal in 2017, and then he signed a 4-year deal in 2019, and that deal is now expired. So it'd take a whole new contract. Hey, the guy's 40. He knows he can't kick forever, and he wants to cash out one more time, and he wants to be closer to his family in Chicago, I think. That was part of the consideration in 2019. He said, hey, I don't want to play in San Francisco. I want to be in Chicago. And the 49ers said, too bad. We're going to franchise tag you. You have to play here. And then Gould said, fine, but it's going to cost a premium. So he played 4 years for the 49ers. Like I said, he was living in the Santa Clara Marriott for a while. Didn't even get a place out there. So I believe he got a place. I can't say for sure. After that, I don't think he was living in the Santa Clara Marriott forever. But, you know, at this age, at 40, I don't blame Robbie Gould for wanting to steer this in the direction where he has leverage. If he can make more money elsewhere to be closer to his family, good for him, you know. So that explains why Robbie Gould wants to go this path. Now, Robbie has said that he wants to make the Hall of Fame and then he wants to win a Super Bowl. Those two things might have been more attainable with the 49ers. But maybe he also thinks that there's going to be a good opportunity elsewhere. I mean, maybe the Cowboys are going to need a new kicker after Brett Maher kept on missing all those extra points. K-Dubsville, always a risk on a rookie kicker that he'll get the yips. Everyone thought that kicker Tampa Bay drafted a couple of years ago was a lock and he couldn't make a kick. Absolutely. The NFL is a whole different beast. And Robbie Gould has done it in the NFL for a really long time. So I can't underscore that, enough that this is a risk for the 49ers. Is it a huge risk? I'm not sure. I think it's a sizable one. But I also think that they're probably as well positioned to absorb the risk as ever, just because of the draft positioning, the kicker class, the intelligence that they've collected at the combine. And, the risk of the other way of action was also significant. The opportunity cost. Again, if you're going to pay Gould over $5 million a year and this rookie kicker is only going to cost you $987,000 on the cap this year, that's a big delta. That's a gap right there that the 49ers are going to be able to apply somewhere else as they're looking to build the strongest roster possible. Calculated risk, says Eric Gomes. Good stuff. It is a calculated risk. Eric Gomes always is a good way of summarizing things. I appreciate him a lot. Yeah, Ryan Suckup, he was Mr. Irrelevant way before Brock Purdy, but the 49ers, if they bring in Ryan Suckup, would have 2 Mr. Irrelevants on their football team. We should sell calculated risk shirts. That would be great with Robbie. Actually, you would have to put John Lynch's face on him because Robbie Gould will now very likely be gone. All right, time to go, guys. I hope this really illustrated what was at play here for the 49ers. We'll talk to everybody soon, okay? Robbie Gould, no more for the 49ers. That is according to Adam Schefter and apparently Robbie Gould himself. Everybody take care. Have a great Saturday night. Maybe a little bit more coming your way. We'll see. Always got to keep you on pins and needles. Like and sub. Talk soon.